Okay. Awesome. Awesome. That's good, Dan? Okay. Awesome. Hello, I'm Taron, and this is our very first episode of About VR in VR. I guess it's a podcast, technically. And today, I'm very excited to have our very first guest, Jo Eyre. I think I said
Hi.
the last time right?
Just about, yeah. It's Jo Eyre, yeah. The air you breathe.
Air.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'll give you a little intro about Jo. Hold on. I should have the... Okay. So I saved a note in my head, so I just took it out.
Amazing.
So
the technology of today.
yeah, we're getting closer to magic.
It is. It's very magical.
Okay, so Jo leads marketing and communications for Quixel at Epic Games. Epic Games, as many of you would know, are the makers of Fortnite and Unreal Engine. Jo is also a PhD candidate focused on creative collaboration in the Metaverse.
Here we are.
Her passion lies at the nexus of human communication, digital anthropology, and frontier technologies. And her research centers around creativity in extended reality environments. Jo's mission is to help people connect deeply with each other using immersive technology. That is amazing. Okay, so Jo, I was thinking, what was your route to VR and like and the metaverse in general? Like, how did you get first excited about it? How did you get introduced to it? What was the road to it?
Yeah, so I've always been into tech, into emerging technologies. My dad was a massive techie. He made sure that we were the first people to have internet available. We were the first people to have internet without that really annoying modem noise when it became available. And he loved his gadgets, and he was always like introducing me to new things. And so I suppose I got hooked at a pretty early age on anything new and exciting in technology. My route to VR specifically, I suppose one of the first times I put on a VR headset must have been at, I think it was probably a Samsung launch in the early 2010s. And
Samsung Gear?
Yeah, it must have been the first Samsung Gear, I guess. And I was like, this is cool, but everything that it was showing was it was kind of 360 video. It was a little bit of game. And I thought, this is really cool, but this is going to do so much more than just games. This is going to do so much more than just interesting experiences. This has the capacity to really change how we communicate, and that's really where my interest is in communication. So that's kind of how I started off with looking into VR, and now I use VR a few times a week, both for entertainment, for games, but also as well for workplace collaboration, and that's really where my research interest lies.
Were you already into your thesis or PhD before you got introduced to VR, or did the paths intertwine?
The paths definitely intertwined. I mean, maybe I'll take you a little bit of a step back on where my PhD came from. I suppose like a lot of PhDs, it didn't come from having my nose in a book, although I do have my nose in books regularly because I'm a bookworm. But really what it came from was a lived experience for me. So it's things I actually experienced in my day-to-day life and asking questions about that. And I've been working remotely for the majority of my career. And with remote work comes video calls. And then, of course, with the pandemic, most other people then started being working from home, being remote workers, and they were also on video calls and things. And I started to really, really dislike video calls, like a lot of us. And I asked people a question. I kept saying, why are we using video call to communicate at work? And the answer I got, or the answers I got, were always the same. The first thing was that people would say, it's the best we have, right? And the second thing people would say is that it's the closest we can get to real life. And this really got me thinking. And it got me thinking about, well, first of all, is this really the best that we can do with all the technology we have? And this is where my mind starts thinking back to the VR that I'd been playing with. And secondly, what's so good about real life, right? So the question I was asking myself, what if rather than trying to recreate reality, we actually aimed for something better for workplace collaboration? Who said that the workplace communication had to be boring? And I suppose this comes full circle with the work that I'm doing at Epic. There's a multi-billion-dollar industry devoted to being able to transport you anywhere, so you can do anything, be anyone, be a superhero, and socialize with people from around the world. And of course, the games industry, many games are laying this platform, laying this foundation for the metaverse. And in turn, creating these new social spaces, these new spaces where people can be creative, be innovative. And what was really interesting to me, I often I'm a parent, I speak to other parents, and they say that they're worried about their kids gaming so much. And when I ask them, what do you mean gaming per se? So they spend hours on Fortnite, on Roblox, Minecraft. And I say to them, well, they're not just playing games. They're spend time with their friends. They're socializing. They are creating as well. And I think they're probably being more innovative than most of us oldies are on our fourth video call of the day, right? Like that doesn't make me feel very creative. So that's really kind of where everything linked together for me and my research, and really thinking around what can workplace communication and collaboration learn from the likes of games, and specifically from VR. So that's where it really started for me.
That's awesome. I really like how you're looking at it as why should collaboration or even anything be an extension of what already exists. We have the power to we're kind of like mini gods, right? Like we're made up of the same environment, but we can manipulate our environment, and then we reside under some kind of like some rules like gravity and like entropy and stuff, but we can manipulate everything around us. So like, and why not make things better? Like or you think
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that is exactly it. And I think there's three things I've seen in the amount of research I've done so far. There's three things really that we need to think about. And the first is that co-presence, right? So that feeling of being together, even though we're not. We are probably tens of thousands of kilometers away from each other right now. You're West Coast?
Yeah,
States?
I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah, you're in South Africa.
Yeah. And yet, right now, as we sit here, I feel like you're with me, and that on certain research has shown that does aid with creative collaboration. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the whole immersion story, and there's been loads of research done on immersion. But for me, my interest in immersion is on focused attention. So unlike when you're on a Zoom call,
Hmm.
You've got another email pop-up. You've got another push notification on your phone. You've got your kids running in. And I guess you might still have your kids running in on VR, but, probably not. But the point is you've got that focused attention, that ability to focus on a shared goal, on a common goal. And that definitely helps with creativity. It can potentially also help with flow state as well, which is another element that may aid creativity.
I like those lines of thoughts because I think that's what we need here. In order to not, I feel like the problem we're having in VR or like AR, they're drawing a lot from like the old paradigms, right? Like of how like okay, the hardware too. That's okay. That's given. We'll improve on that. But like the Windows-based stuff and the notifications and the app-based stuff, the problem of like bringing older design paradigms, thinking paradigms into VR. Like I've seen this problem a lot. Like just like the Windows-based things how should be done, notifications, apps, and I think it's a deep problem of how to. And I like your way of thinking of that. It needs to be inherently fresh and it needs to be inherently different, right?
Right, exactly. And I think this is the big thing. When we talk about one of the characteristics of VR, the big thing is imagination, and that's what we need to think about when we think about workplace collaboration, workplace communication in VR, because the whole point is that you can be anything, do anything, be anywhere, right? And why would we sit in a boardroom with no windows, like we often do in real life, when we can go and brainstorm on the top of Kilimanjaro, or when we can sit on the moon and write our notes in dust, in moon dust, or whatever it's called, and I mean, look at this place. You've got enough that shows me that I can walk around. That, as you said, there's that element of gravity, but then you've got these beautiful levitating elevators, and you've got we're in space, so you've got that really nice combination of I recognize this to be a room, and yet there is fantasticism, there is magic, and I really think that there's a lot to be done with bringing that magic and that fantasticism from the game world into the workplace environment in VR. And that's really what I think needs to happen. Yeah.
I think you're nailing it down so good. Like that, bringing magic into it is the is the key. And like it's this is like we really have an opportunity to have our like imaginations at play. Like when else in the like history of our like civilization have we been able to combine like all like work, play, magic? It's I think it's beautiful.
Infinite possibilities, absolutely. And I love that you talk about it as in this in terms of our evolution as human beings, because a lot of my background interest is in anthropology, and that's why I suppose you can call myself a digital anthropologist. But
I like that actually. That's really good. Yeah.
You like?
Yeah, I really like it.
I've just got that real interest in what is it that makes us human, and I think that of all the things that make us human, one of the most interesting is that power of forethought. So, when we were early humans, we innovated in order to survive. So, really basic things like we're going to create a sharp weapon so that we can protect ourselves from wolves or whatever it is that's coming to us. But then it goes one step beyond that, and where we don't just need to protect ourselves on the spot, but we can, we can know exactly what animal has been where and when by looking for prints, and then we can extrapolate from that various different possible futures that might occur. So we might know that, okay, this wolf was only here half an hour ago, it might come back, therefore maybe we should not hang around, all of these things that are quite unique to us as a species. And it's that power of the forethought that allows us to not only see and understand what possible outcomes may occur, but by doing that, we can therefore create the kind of futures that we want. And that is the piece of creativity, right? That is what creativity is really at its core. So,
Are you saying creativity is the velocity of predictiveness, I guess, yeah?
Right.
Or
Yeah,
acceleration
like
of predictiveness, yeah. That's really good.
I like that. That's a nice way to put it. It's a nice way to put it. Because it's, we create in order to survive, sure. But then what you had about 30 to 60,000 years ago, the Upper Paleolithic period, you've got this explosion of creativity and cultural activity, things like ritualistic behavior and
Why?
paintings, music. So it's partly perhaps to do with brain size, although that is to be said that that happened a lot earlier. But more specifically, it became very important to use creativity and use culture as a part of social cohesion. So at that point, social cohesion became a lot more important. And of course, then that leads into discussions around why do people need to be more social? Why are we social animals? And, we could talk about that for days on end. But I suppose what's really interesting to me is all of this innovation. These things happen for millennia in a 3D world. And then at some point down the line, we got distracted by glowing 2D screens that, like display technology. It was designed to display. It was never designed for us to communicate through it. And yet, because of the way we got used to using these technologies, that it became that way. So to be honest, I just feel like VR and communicating in VR is just bringing us back to our innate humanness in many ways, both from an innate human communication standpoint, but also from the creativity as well.
That is so good. Yeah, because even the innate name, it's display. Like
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's display text. It's not full communication text. Yeah.
Yeah. And like yesterday I was sitting down and I was like, I had a screen in front of me. I was looking at TV and then I was like I was relaxing while like playing a game. I'm like, what am I doing? Like it's like it's in a world of screens and it's just taken like completely on its own tangent.
Yeah, it has. And, I'm not saying that we're there yet with these big, heavy things. And what was it that someone called them the other day? Sweaty face computers. Yeah.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not there yet. I'm not particularly comfortable with this on my face for long periods of time. I certainly can't exercise with it on. Like these people that are asking for more exercise in VR, they're like, geez, either you're not exercising very hard or you've got a completely different... Yeah. But gee, my neck would not work. And plus I don't like sweating into my headset. But I think that we're going in that direction. But yeah, the tech's not quite there yet.
I like what you're saying, though, that this is bringing us back to our roots of social ability. Like because like on a flat screen, you're essentially entering a world, like you're entering someone else's mind, right? It's like it's a screen, it's a flat area that's designed by a lot of brains. So it's like the colors of Facebook, everything on that screen, including the screen itself, is brain designed. So it's not like outside of like it's not natural per se, right? So you're entering someone else's or like some company's world. So like it feels distracting because like your mind gets pulled into someone else's mind. Like, but here, like this is again someone else's mind, right? Like that designed it, or like many minds, but you don't get that sense that it's Yeah.
It's like we are inhabiting it rather than
Yeah.
it guiding what we have to do. And
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting, when you talk about the internet as we experience it on a screen most days versus what we're beginning to see with perhaps more metaverse or more. I don't like using VR and metaverse anonymously because they're not.
I know.
VR is kind
Yeah.
of one of those platforms. But I think for the sake of this particular discussion, I think it's interesting to look at the evolutions of the internet and looking at Web 1 as being very much about the search and information gathering, and then Web 2 being very much about the social and the sharing, and 3 that we're now kind of entering, or arguably have been and have entered for quite a while, is very much more about that experience and that immersion. And I think that's what we're talking about here, is that although this has been designed by someone else, by yourself, no, but it doesn't feel like you are not imposing anything upon me, and it's something that I can inhabit and I guess co-create with you. And I think that's one of the big things.
Yeah, I think that's what's important. You mentioned that before too. Is I think being able, like when you were talking about like kids playing Fortnite and they're creating
co-creation.
I think that's what's important. Is ability to sculpt, because like I think like we're kind of like, as humans, like the opposite of like a black hole, right? Like we're kind of like mini like white holes. Like we're like mini big bangs. Like because like when you have like a thought, like it's like the neuron firing upon itself, or like its neighboring neurons. Like it's very clustered, right? And then that it explodes out like this energy, and then comes out, and then like comes to your fingers and becomes action, right? And so like that, from nothing, almost like an infinite dense singularity, it did the opposite of like taking in information. It's giving out, right? We're kind of like mini big bangs just walking around, and like who like so we just want to create. We want to create. We want to like give out. So I think what you're saying plays very nicely with that. It allows us, enables us to awaken, to tap that more, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. I like that. And I think it's always, we want to, as online citizens, as digital citizens, we generally want to give more than we take. Maybe most people don't, but certainly, a lot of the people I work with do want to give more than they take. And these kind of environments where there is that ability to co-create, to create by yourself as well, really just enables you to do that. And it enables you to create experiences, spaces, things. In my mind, I'm thinking about digital assets. It's what my team at Epic Games creates is, real world 3D scans that can then be used in games and movies and things like that. But that's just one
right?
element.
I think.
Yeah, they use photogrammetry, absolutely. But that's just one of many things. You can also create experiences like concerts, we've seen in Fortnite, for example, or art galleries, or, it's infinite possibilities.
I love how you're framing that. That's a really, like the child in me likes it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome. It's a lot of yeses. Like,
Yeah.
Let me pull out one. I had like made this the cringiest like metaverse picture I could find. I'll have to look. Hold on, let me make it bigger. I was gonna pop this out when we're talking about the metaverse, but we'll just leave it here. Hold on. Okay. The metaverse. uh, uh, Joe, what do you think? I think we touched on this a little. Like, what's
Mm.
currently missing in VR? Do you think there's like one killer experience app, and like maybe what's your favorite experience, or should they even be experiences? Like, what do you think the current state is? If there's anything, what's missing?
Yeah. Um, I think that there is, yeah, as you say, we've touched on it. We're lacking that marrying together of experience, workplace, and game. So taking the magic from gaming, the beauty of experience, and the productivity needed for the workplace. There's some brilliant workplace apps out there now. Like that, I'm not going to even go into names, but obviously there's a big name that occurred recently with their launch, and all of them have got fantastic things about them.
He was good, right?
Yeah.
Thing, workrooms. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
He
it's
was
fantastic.
it was brilliantly done. Like lots of learnings from there. Like I really like how they um, concentrated just right like on what the name is. It's just like a workroom, right? Like you start with the table, and I think there's like lots of innovations there.
Definitely,
I
no,
think it's
they've
good
done
too.
brilliant job. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before like spatial. Have you
Spatial, great
played
stuff.
around with spatial?
Great stuff, yeah. That what really excited me about Spatial was looking at their instant translate. I thought, it's just that one of those freaking crazy things I didn't think I'd be able to
Which
see
one, Joe?
in my life. But so, when you're talking to somebody in a different language and then it's instantly translated above the avatar's head, it's just so cool. And
that is awesome.
It'll change, that kind of thing won't just change workplace, that kind of thing's going to completely change the way that we're able to communicate with people from everywhere. And that's that kind of thing. It's just such cool technology. And I was clapping when I saw that. But I also think that one thing I really like to do is I just like to use the Wonder app and go to different parts of the world. Some that I've been to before, to go and relive it again, and some that I've perhaps never been to. And what gets me thinking when I'm walking around these places is you've got this whole industry around company corporate retreats, right? And it's not quite, well, certainly not at the moment, but I don't think it will ever be quite as easy to get on a plane and get hundreds of people in one place for a company away week or a retreat. And these were generally designed to spark a bit of creativity, to pull you out of your comfort zone and things like that. But VR is a perfect way to do it differently. So I'm really interested in seeing where we can go with that. It's not all about sitting in a workroom. It's not all about boardrooms. It's very much about how we can find ways to help teams feel closer together, but also feel more creative as well.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I really like your philosophy on like how you're combining everything together, because it's always been work different, play different, and I guess this is the place and time where we can mix it together and then be better versions of us, like not like stoic, like defined, right? Like this this is the office for this is the thing. It's like
Exactly.
and it's been like told so many times that like you believe that's the only reality that exists. That's the only way. So it's,
that might be one good thing about everybody having their cameras on during video calls, perhaps. It's that we have seen the lives behind the people, right? So we've seen unmade beds and kids running into the room, and there's a certain element of humanity, of humanness about that, which is nice. But by the same merit, I look at it's not just me saying I struggle with video calls. I'm when I'm on a video call, I'm kind of part looking at myself, making sure that I don't know, I haven't got food on me or whatever. I'm kind of part looking at other people, trying to see if they want to start speaking. I'm trying to focus on what somebody's saying, but then somebody else has got background noise. It's just not a good way to communicate. And that there has, there's been some great research out of Carnegie Mellon that showed that our collective intelligence becomes lower when we turn our videos on in video calls. As soon as you turn them off and you just focus on the voice, because of the prosodic communication, you just focus on the prosody, which is, the kind of the intonation, the volume, the how we speak, then the collective intelligence goes back up. So it's crazy, because for a very long time we were told, turn your video on. It's the closest we can get to face-to-face, like I was going back to, I was talking about at the beginning. Turn your video on, it's the best we can get. We need to feel like we're more together, and it's just not true, because although you might get a little bit more facial expression, a little bit of body language, what you're losing is so much more. So it's a very interesting and complex area.
That's super. It's Carnegie Mellon, yeah?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, you can search Carnegie Mellon Zoom calls. I don't know if they specifically use Zoom, but it was video conferencing. And I feel bad saying bad things about Zoom. They've been an absolute lifesaver.
No, Zoom's great, but it's not the it's not the app or anything. It's the
no, it's exactly the paradigm that they're working
effects,
from,
yeah.
like you were saying earlier. Yeah.
Zoom, Carnegie Mellon Zoom cognition, maybe, huh?
Yeah, or if you search collective intelligence, it'll
collective.
Mm.
There it is. I love Google. Oh, here it is. I'll share it on the screen. Okay. This one, yeah, Joe?
That's the one. Yes, there you go.
Okay. Okay, awesome. I'll read this afterwards. Thank you. All right. I love these little tangents. Like I had prepared a bunch of questions, but we're going like I love tangents. Like cutest cousin of
back to the questions. I do have a tendency of waffling.
No, it's awesome. So what's your take on bigger companies like Facebook or others, like throwing the word metaverse around and like saying they're going to create the metaverse? It almost it's great. Like I you take on it and I'll add to it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that someone saying that they're going to create the metaverse is a little bit like one company saying that they're going to create the internet. It's a crazy way of looking at it. The metaverse, almost by definition, will be created by many, and I absolutely welcome big companies like Facebook. I work with Epic, and we, our CEO Tim Sweeney has a very
he's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, I know. He's a fantastic visionary, and he has a very clear vision of the metaverse as well. And I think that firstly, I think it's going to be created by many, and is already being created by many. But secondly, and really importantly, it has to be, as far as possible, interoperable and open in order to be the kind of metaverse that we want it to be. And I suppose this comes back to the other thing and comes back to what we were talking about earlier about the power of forethought, really we need to be in a position where we are creating the kind of metaverse that we want. And when I say we, that is very much a collective we. It can't be created by one company in the same way that this particular evolution of the internet has been created by a few large tech firms. I just don't see that would work for this next evolution. I mean, I'm not particularly an expert in that space, so I won't pretend to go any further into that. But that's my personal view of how we should be looking at it.
I think this next question plays into it as well. How do you imagine it existing? Like, how do what is it like? Where is that ether where like all these other tinier metaverses, like Facebook's metaverse, right? Like, or Fortnite in itself as a metaverse. Like, what's the base ether, and how do you like traverse from one to another?
Yeah, I have no idea. I know what I would like it personally to feel a little bit like, you know, walking down a street and hopping into places that I want to hop into. So I want to go into Facebook and go and catch up with some friends and family and, you know, play some games and have some fun. And then I want to, without having to change or feel like I'm changing my environment, I then want to go and have a work meeting about something down the road while I have my afternoon coffee. And then maybe I want to meet up with some friends and play some ping pong or whatever. And I want it to feel seamless, and I want to be able to do some shopping while I'm, you know, in between tasks. And I think that's the other thing, is that I don't see the metaverse as being something that is that's everything, and then the current version of the internet disappears. You know, it's more that there's this. It's not even a gap per se. It's kind of like I want to physically go into a store, and when I'm physically in that store, I want to know how I can continue taking that experience that I've had there onto the internet when I'm writing emails, because I still do like to write emails on a screen. And then I want to know how I can further take that experience and go back into their store in Metaverse. And like we were saying earlier, that Metaverse may be on a screen still, or it may be in VR. So yeah, that's how I would see it in my head. But there's so many amazing things that we can begin to dream of. And I want to be able to go and meet my friends on top of a mountain and play music with them and dance with them under these beautiful stars that we have here. You know?
I like how the way you put it, the seamlessness, where it's kind of like how like me and you are like not we're not just like some derivation of our ancestors. We're like an accumulation of all our ancestors into a single living point, right? And then so like the whatever comes as the metaverse is accumulation of everything that is. That's what. That's
It's very utopic, but I love it.
Yeah. I think
you know,
all of us.
The fact of the matter is that we. I mean, you're a man after my own heart, and I love the utopia, and you know, we were talking about a lot of the metaverse stories and the dystopia type feel. And in reality, it's never that good and it's never that bad, is it? Because we're human beings. It's always going to be at a bit of both. And there's a huge number of challenges that are going to come with this new evolution of the internet. And when I think about the workplace, security, my goodness. I mean, all power to Facebook, love them to death, but I'm not sure I'd want to hold my business meetings in Facebook. You know, so especially not for very sensitive information when I'm discussing sensitive information. So I think security and privacy is going to be even more scary. I don't like to use that
Oh
word, but
yeah,
it's going to be a
yeah.
challenge. Let's put it that way.
I like that. It's going to be a challenge. And you have like I love what Facebook has been doing to the space. Like it's insane. Like they've been driving like VR adoption,
Yep.
or right after like Google Cardboard, right? And then so
Absolutely.
and now you have I was reading that like ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, is purchasing Pickle. So you're having this like a battle royale of like two giants,
and
like
and I think it's
and
still
both
going
of
to
them with
be
privacy concerns. Yeah.
it's not going to be a case of who's going to win. Everybody's going to win, I think. It's about making the pie bigger, in my view. And I'm really interested in Epic's acquisition of Sketchfab as well. I think that's a really interesting one for the AR space. We talked a lot about VR for obvious reasons, but AR is really exciting. I think there's so much that we haven't even touched on, far beyond things like like storefronts and commercial uses.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the sky's the limit. Really is.
Have you seen any good iteration of like shopping? You were mentioning storefronts. No, huh? I haven't.
No. I mean, I'm not that into personally trying things on in AR. I don't think that doesn't work for me.
I don't
What
like it
does
either.
work for me? No, I mean, there's something there. What does work for me is things like companies knowing my sizing, so that I can see what a specific garment actually looks like on me, as opposed to on a really skinny model or on whatever they've decided to show it on. So I think there's something interesting there. But yeah, I don't think that I don't go shopping in AR and get much out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't. We're not there yet. I don't know if we ever will be, and that's fine. Like I don't. I'm like I love trying on clothes as they are.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of it's about the feel as well, isn't it? How does it feel on you? And we've got the whole Internet of Senses and everything with some kind of element of smell and all sorts of very cool things in that technology. But yeah, it's going to be a while before I can put on a pair of jeans and actually feel what it's like without actually putting on a pair of jeans and feeling what it's like.
Do we even want that? I don't know. Jo, can you tell a little about your work at Quixel?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to take a little fork away from the metaverse, and then we'll come back to it.
Sure. Well, now, if you want me to talk about Quixel and not mention the metaverse, this is going to be a challenge.
No, but just yeah, that's true.
That's a nice one. Very cool.
This one was my favorite.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. So this is this.
I think this defines what you guys are.
Yeah, it's a short called Rebirth that the team did, and yeah, it's an amazing cinematic short. If you haven't watched it, it's very short, real, like an objective photorealism done by a very small team. But anyway, yeah, just a little bit of background there. So I got the opportunity to join this amazing startup, Quixel, in 2018. I was really inspired by their mission. It's a crazy mission, and the mission was to scan the world, to capture the world. And when I say capturing the world, it's we've got teams around the planet that go out and scan real-world objects.
Wow.
using geometry so that those can then be used in games, in movies, in product visualization, in architectural visualization, and beyond. And so I came on to help them with their marketing and communication, and everything that comes under that. And then about a year later, Epic Games acquired us. And, I've got what you might call a healthy skepticism with regards to large corporates. So I was a little bit nervous about going from working at a startup where I feel very comfortable.
Sorry, Jo, how many people team were you at the time?
We were a few hundred, so it wasn't a small company.
Okay.
It had grown hugely, but still going into a large corporate like Epic, it was a bit nerve-wracking for me. But I am so glad. I'm so glad that I stayed on. It's just I can't begin to tell you how cool Epic is, how epic Epic is. Not just very talented people, and not just fantastic, exciting, world-changing products, but also just the culture. Company culture is just second to none. I've honestly never known anything like it. So I'm very, very lucky, very humbled to be a part of the team there. And it's amazing that I'm able to do a PhD that is somewhat aligned with what we're up to there as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it comes from top down. I don't like. I think you're the first person I interacted with from Epic, but just from the messages or like from the CEO, like how he speaks or what he like the messages he puts out is, I can feel the goodness at heart. It's, and I'm glad like people like him are leading companies that can make an impact and are for good. Like it's great to make money, but it's also you shouldn't lose your humanness. I think like from just how Epic is presented, it's a lot of goodness there. I feel like.
Yeah, it's you'd be right there. It's a whole lot of goodness. I mean, we work super hard, but it doesn't matter. You know, when you're working really hard for something you believe in, and that something you believe in that you're not forced or coerced to believe in. Everybody is genuinely passionate about what they're doing. It's a bit of a cliche, but it doesn't feel like work when when you love what you do. So.
What's something like during your work or during your time being alive, or like what's something fascinating about humans that you have figured out?
There's quite a few things I could say here. I'm wondering what's most appropriate for today. I think that I would say genuinely that most people come from a good place, right? So most people want what's best. However, people are also inherently selfish. So whilst they may want what's best, people are often only wanting what's best for them and their immediate family, perhaps, or immediate friends. And it's quite difficult sometimes to encourage people to look at the wider whole. And that's very easy for me to say with all the privilege that I have. You know, I'm privileged enough to be able to see a greater whole, to be able to, I know that I know where my next dinner is coming from. You know, I've got food on the table. We've got a roof over our heads. So I appreciate that that is not something that everybody has. So sure, I suppose what I'm saying is people that do have that privilege, that are able to think about the wider community, the wider society, and that's never before, I believe, has that been more important than now with COVID. So yeah. That's see, that went off on a bit of a tangent. So I'm reining myself in.
That was fascinating. That that was fascinating. Why a little from there? Why do you think ego exists?
Hmm. I think ego exists so that we can survive. I don't believe that human beings would have got as far as we have without ego. But I also believe that where we're at in our evolution as human beings, we know now how to manage that ego, and therefore we should.
Yeah, I think that's basically that we it kind of like gave the boundary around us for us to be us,
Mm.
um, right? And then at points you have to be mindful about taking it away or not, like letting it.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we've got to where we are because of partly because of ego, and we need to recognize and be respectful of that in many ways. You know,
that's it's
we
kind
have
of
rights
like
and we have responsibilities. You know, we're taught this at primary school. People, let's let's try and remember this as adults.
it's kind of like the sun, right? Like it's like defined itself very egocentrically, like as one like point of light. Um, and then, but once it has, now it's giving light to us. So it's like it used
Mm-hmm.
its ego to form itself because it liked being a sun. And then, but now it's giving back. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting
I
it.
like that. It's yeah, it's very existential in many ways, but kind of positive as well.
Awesome. Very good. I want to take a few more questions into meta land, like some.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about Neurolink?
About what? Sorry.
Neuralink, Elon Musk's
Mm.
Neuralink.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I don't know enough about it to be able to comment.
Okay.
But yeah, Musk is someone I hold in high regard. Um, and I also always like to point out that he is South African, just,
Yeah, that's
while we're here. But no, I don't know enough about Neuralink.
okay. Have you like have you seen Facebook's acquisition of Control Labs last year? Uh, are you familiar with Control Labs?
No.
No, they were making like these bracelets that kind of like, do you remember the Myo band that you would wear?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
So kind of
Mm.
like Myo band on like superpowers where
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would be able to detect movement
Mm-hmm.
from gestures from just your wrist, but also like re- read like predict neural output. So kind of
Uh-huh.
like what
Yeah, yeah.
what you're thinking without without
Yep.
actually like going into your brain, or like for you to wear
Mm-hmm.
some kind of a headset. And I think that's really one of the tools that um, that it is going to be important to going back to what you're saying of
Mm-hmm.
sculpting your what you
Mm-hmm.
want. Um, well, because I think the tools we use right now to create for VR and AR themselves, those tools have to be reinvented. They're old.
Mm-hmm.
They're made for like creating on a flat screen, right? Like
Yep.
that even boils down like besides the like the basic mouse and the keyboard, even letters themselves. They're uh, they're not made for fastly communicating
No.
what you're thinking, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so many layers. Like it's letters are like agreed upon like symbols by everyone, right? Like it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like first blockchain, and like sounds are like agreed upon. Words are like agreed upon sounds, and like if you want to
Yep.
create something, you first comes from your neuron to your fingers or to your mouth, and then from your fingers you use the letters on a keyboard or a pen to type, and then with this you can like write a program using like another language, which then tells the computer what to do, and then like so from thought to finger to creation is like so long. And
it sounds
like
crazy, doesn't it, when you put it like that?
yeah, it's insane, and I think like going back to what you're saying, it's really important to fix these kinds of things uh, for VR. Like that, like how do we shorten that, right? How do we? Uh, mm,
Well, exactly,
how
and,
do we?
and it's the
Yeah,
saying we need to stop coming to it from old world paradigms, don't we? You know, we've got to stop trying to create keyboards that work in VR because
yeah,
it they just and I know that they've got a lot better, but it's tiring. Um, what's quite exciting for me in many ways is how we're coming back to speaking to each other. And I think going from these kind of conversations where I didn't really know what we were going to talk about. You were like, we're going to have a chat. We'll talk, I'll ask you some questions about your studies, maybe about your work. And that's all the information I had. And it makes it feel very real. So I am just sitting here on a couch talking to you.
yeah.
But in terms of ideas and where they come from and how they are, I suppose this is where the difference between creativity and innovation is. With creativity is the novel and useful idea creation, whereas innovation is perhaps the implementation of those ideas. Right. So we get from this idea in my head to a point where we're actually implementing that idea in real life. That there's got to be a way of actually studying. And there is. I mean, there's people doing some fantastic work in behavioral science and psychology and all of that work when it comes to what are the next steps to make this work.
There is like I have a feeling that there has to be we have to do work in kind of like recreating the alphabet or like coming up with like a new like human alphabet that's universal, but that's not based on
sign language.
Yeah, not even sign. Yeah, there is sign language is one step closer, but being able to uh, kind of like, okay, if I say the word strong, right? What do you imagine?
I suppose I personally would think about muscles, perhaps, or
Okay.
the kind of drink that I would like this evening.
Oh, that's good. I wouldn't mind one either, actually, now. So I imagine the word strong as like a rock, right? And like it's a shape of rock that's specific in my head. I have to draw it out for you to see it, and like the color and stuff, or like, or the way you imagine strong in this, like same word, same meaning, completely different representations, unless we discuss about it and we, we project how we want to describe it. I think there's a step where we can, if we can capture that neural output of like what, let's say, what's strong for me looks like, and what it looks like for you, and let's say like 1,000 other people, and from it, like, so derive like a personal neural language that's yours, and then from that derive like a universal human neural language of like how you would express that strong, and kind of like maybe
I like how it's visual. I like how you're thinking about it from a visual standpoint. But the challenge with that is
how do we do that?
Well, I think there's also a challenge there because first your assumption is that it's not really an assumption. It's correct in saying that we need context in order to fully understand what another person is saying. But you're therefore assuming that when I see a visual image, that is all I'm seeing. So, for example, I see the sun there, right? You've got a sun next to you. We're both seeing the same image, but the ideas and what it may symbolize to us personally may still be different. And you can't get beyond that, right? Like, because you would constantly be having this neural output that would have to visualize something that is unvisualizable, right? Unless we're talking about actual things like the sun. But if I'm talking about an emotion, like, if I want to say I'm feeling sad, that I can't show you that. And it's actually quite an interesting one from a communication standpoint, actually. You may have heard what has been called the Maccabean myth, that is, what is it, 80 or 90% of communication is body language or something like that. It's nonverbal is what it is. And it's not actually true. It's that, I can't remember the exact percentage, but 90% of communication, when you are communicating an emotion, is nonverbal. So that's what it's actually about. It's not about body language being this amazing. I mean, it is amazing, especially when you get down to things like micro expressions and micro body language. It's very interesting. It's very important. But that's not what the whole thing was about. What it was about is is that we communicate our emotions primarily in our bodies. And we all know that, right? We know that it's difficult to verbalize sometimes how we feel, because it is hard, because language doesn't stretch that far. And that's why what your premise there gets a bit problematic, is when it comes down to feeling and emotion. How can you communicate that visually?
Maybe like I'm imagining these things to be like kind of like living hieroglyphs, or like living like alchemical symbols, where they carry your vision, or your perspective on how maybe it's like if you're sad, like it's a very like, no, when you're happy, let's say it's a yellow bubble, and with it, like they're also maybe able to carry like some kind of like mathematical functions as well, or like app functions, kind of like living blockchains that are expressions of your neural representation of what you think about a certain thing. But there are like similarities where we can derive like a kind of like a Babylon of alphabet that's similar, like at an unconscious level across all humanity.
And the very first step with that, and I think where it's going to have huge impact, it would be with those who are unable for whatever reason to communicate verbally, or those that are deaf, for example. We're talking about sign language, and it's not sign language, but it's it gives you the same kind of abilities to communicate beyond how you and me do.
Yeah. I think that's super, super important, and I think that's going to be very important for actually creating in VR or AR, where the paradigm itself defines itself. Like it's made for it, made by it for itself. Like kind of like how like there were like hybrid cars, they were extensions of the car, and then like Tesla came along, and it was like an electric medium first, then a car layer on top, right? It wasn't. It was like completely new one. It's like even with the iPhone, right? Like before it was like, but Palm Pilots were just like laptops crammed in your pocket, desktop crammed in your pocket, and then iPhone was like a mobility device first, then a phone layer on top. So I think same with VR, like the I think that's
yeah.
yeah.
I think but it has to come back to what problem are we trying to solve, rather than we've got this technology, so what can we do with it? It should perhaps be the other way around. What problems do we face as humanity, and how can we use technology to solve those problems? And I speak about the fact I'm based in South Africa. It's one of the things that I've always loved about living in this continent is the incredible innovation. And, you talk about necessity being the mother of invention, and I think Africa is very much about that. When someone creates here, when someone innovates here, and I'm generalizing hugely, but there's very much a feeling of they're doing it to solve a real problem rather than doing it to be the next thing. And I'm very inspired by that.
That's yeah. You're bringing us back to a good point. Like as just because it's there, why are we using it? What are we using it for? But what can we actually use it for that serves a purpose? That's good. Like one I think about is like for me personally, like I don't think I'm a good communicator, and I think
I would disagree.
Maybe here, and then like it's so pleasant like to talking with you. Like I'm actually genuinely enjoying this conversation. Like it's
me too. Very cool.
Yeah, think like I was thinking like each of us like has like an internal sun, like that like loves to like shine, right, and like be sunny, and like the tools of the trade are kind of sometimes hard for us to express our like internal like shiny state, and I think any tool should uh, make it easier for you to express yourself, because I think the more I know you, the more I know your internal state, the closer we are, and the closer as like humanity we will be, and like I think less of our problems we'll have, like when I know the deep Jo, right? Like not just a boundary of body and words.
That's so important, and that's one reason why I love working in communication, because it's a really nice like analogy, having that inner light, that sun. I work quite a bit with women who, on a kind of pro bono basis, with women who are innovating in their own space, who are entrepreneurial, and a lot of the time people come to me and they say, Jo, can you help me with a bit of PR? I want to get it out in front of the media. I'm like, yeah, I can, but what are you going to say? And they're like, well, I'm really nervous about this. I'm nervous about that. I don't know how to do this. I'm like, well, first of all, you need to work on your own, yourself, your internal communication with your, it's very much like an onion. Work on yourself first, and then communicate out. Because and now we come to the whole idea of knowing yourself, being able to be kind to yourself, communicate nicely to yourself, and that will really then help you be able to communicate your inner core and your inner light with others, and that's super important.
I think that's very important. Like I've been realizing that like recently. That's just you have to be nice to yourself. Like you're the cutest, like best thing there is, like to yourself. Like and then and how you internalize that, it gets externalized. I think
talk to yourself as if you would your best friend. That's
yeah.
I don't
that's
always. I would like to. That's my goal. I don't always, but if your friend comes in and they're a couple of minutes late, you don't think bad of them, do you? You say
no.
You don't even notice. And I hate being late myself. When I'm late, I kick myself, and I'm just like, "No, you stupid! Why would you do that? Why are you late?" But so I'm trying to be better to myself. It's an ongoing an ongoing, lifelong journey, but we can but try.
Me too, because like I think like we're like you always do the best you always can. And there's no it's just like breathing air. Like you're just in any given situation, you're always doing
Yep.
the best you can.
Yep.
If I think you rewind the time, like with all where all the molecules were in the universe at the same time at that time when you made that decision, I don't think you would have made a different decision. Like there's no
Yeah, exactly.
like so in retrospect it's easy to criticize, but
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, hindsight's everything,
Joe,
but there's no point.
yeah. Joe, two more questions for you, and I
Okay.
borrowed this from Lex Friedman, the podcast. He has these two questions at the end. Until I come up with my own, I'm gonna borrow his. So these are good. What's the meaning of life for you?
I should have done my research and looked at some Lex Friedman and planned my answer. What's the meaning of life for me? The meaning of life for me is to create deep connection, to have deep connections with people, and help others to do the same.
I think that's beautiful. Yeah, it's like just helping for no purpose. That's pretty. And one more. What's your favorite book?
So, that's a hard one. I love sci-fi, and perhaps unsurprisingly. My all-time favorite is probably Dune. I love Dune. I love Dune so much that I called my daughter Alia.
That's where her name is from.
Yes, yeah. It's a very problematic character. I understand that, and my daughter is very much not an abomination, but she does have bright blue eyes, so perhaps she's got that Fremen in her, maybe. But yeah, I love Dune.
That's a pretty name.
I think it's a pretty name, even without the nod to the sci-fi. Of course, she's got a literary second name as well, Jane, as in Jane Eyre. So I tricked my husband into it, actually, because he doesn't read.
I like it.
Yeah, Alia Jane Eyre. So, yeah, no, Dune's a fantastic book, but I've got many favorite books, but I think Dune must be up there. I just love how incredibly immersive it is, and it's just the whole Dune universe is fascinating to me.
I haven't read it. I have the book, and actually, after hearing you recommend it, I'll go read it. The book even is like very gold and shiny. It's nice.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's worth the read. A lot of the other novels aren't as good, but Dune is the original is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, highly recommended.
Yay! Awesome, Joe. Thank you for taking the time, for the lovely conversation. I genuinely enjoyed it, and don't know how time passed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic.
High five. Awesome. Oh, by the way, we can fly here. I forgot.
Oh, yes.
And then, yes. Bye.